In episode 1 of the Boardman Dam video series, we saw the devastating effect that a 17-foot drawdown of waters on the impoundment between the dams had on the residents living there. Despite evidence to the contrary, Traverse City Mayor Mike Estes claims that the homeowners' property rights are not an issue.
I think the last group which still is attempting to fight this process is property owners on one of the impoundments, but I think with time they'll realize that this is going to be a benefit for them and the community at large. I don't think this is an issue of private property rights. I'm a huge advocate of private property rights. We are not taking anybody's property in this process.
While the Property Rights Network asserts that the Boardman River drawdown is indeed a property rights issue, other topics to consider include the impact removing the dams would have on the century-old ecosystem surrounding the dams, as well as the lost potential for renewable hydroelectric power.
Now, my name is Russ Harding. I'm Director of the Property Right Network for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. As you can see, we're standing in front of a beautiful biologically diverse wetland. I think the average person would look at this and say, geez, this is really worth preserving. As dams are removed, as water channels change, we can lose this kind of tremendous habitat and wetland area. It can be done in a way that doesn't destroy that, but that doesn't appear to be what's planned here in this area, and that's sad because these are the kind of areas I think most people would say we ought to certainly protect.
Hi, we're standing on the Boardman River in Grand Traverse County, and we're north of the Boardman Dam, and we're actually south of the Sabin Dam, which is out in this area here. We have a very slow-moving part of the river system here that was part of the original Grand Traverse County Educational Reserve. And we're looking at this pristine, what would be identified as an emergent wetland community. And this type of a community, over 34 acres of it, have been destroyed north of the Boardman Dam in the recent drawdown and plans for removal of the dam. These areas have not been considered for mitigation, even though they've lost the water, the fish habitat, the breeding habitat for the fish, and even those creatures that like to live in a slow-moving area like swans with their babies out here.
Removal of these dams could have serious environmental consequences, primarily for two reasons. One is these lakes serve a very useful purpose for slowing down sediment, settling out that sediment, which oftentimes in an area like this has some contamination in it. Secondly, the destruction of wetlands, which also act as very effective filters for contamination, certainly are not good for the environment.
But it's like every project. I mean, if you have a development project of building a really nice structure, a house next to you, for a while it's going to look like a pigsty with all the machines and stuff all around there. Right now we've exposed the bottoms of a lot of this property, and it is turning to weeds and mud flats. That's the first step. Over a course of time, you're going to see mature trees basically taking up the entire property. I would guess it would be filled with hardwoods, white pines, tamarack, those type of things, which will enhance the wildlife, create better opportunities for actually everybody in viewing the property. And again, I know it's a high priority with the city to stabilize that level as soon as we can.
I wish I could have brought you here a few years ago when what we would have seen was water all the way to the mark around there, and this high quality emergent wetland was available to be enjoyed. As you can see, it's here no longer. I've brought many of my students to appreciate the value of high quality wetlands, and it breaks my heart to see that they're no longer with us.
Although PRN attempts to interview Department of Environmental Quality officials were declined, a direct quote taken from the Traverse City Record Eagle by the Department of Natural Resources, Todd Kalish, indicates that even the DNR and the local newspaper recognize the importance of the current Boardman watershed ecosystem. If you want to enhance any environmental aspect of the Boardman watershed, then the dams have to be removed or modified. Otherwise, it just maintains the status quo, and that's not a bad thing. There is value there.
If I was standing here just a matter of a couple years ago, I would literally be in the water. I'd have to have chest waders on. Again, we're seeing now what is becoming increasingly desolate. Much of the wildlife and the beauty of the area is disappearing, all in the name that we're going to create some romantic ideal of a pre-settlement condition. Sometimes the best thing we can do is celebrate what we have, enjoy the richness of the biological diversity, and just leave well enough alone. It's interesting at a time when we're very concerned about alternative energy, green jobs. Standing right here behind me, we see a spillway where we have a tremendous energy resource. Unfortunately, that energy resource is being wasted. It's been estimated that over $2 million of revenue has already been lost from this natural power resource.
As they are, the dams are basically structurally sound and therefore, with the hydro, have much intrinsic value. In the likelihood that renewable energy becomes even more valuable in the future, expending the funds for demolition or partial removal could be viewed as being doubly foolish. Without the hydro operations, the dams, or what will be left of them, will be nothing but an ongoing liability paid for by taxpayer dollars. It is surprising that the dams were decommissioned in the first place. It is like giving away the cities and the counties' crown jewels.
Our firm, Peterson Machinery, has recently purchased the assets of the hydroelectric equipment from Traverse City Light and Power here in Traverse City at both Boardman and Sabin Dam. And we have intervened and come to the county in regard to reproducing hydroelectric power and relicensing and operating the dams. Our proposal was handed into Grand Traverse County and the city earlier this year in April with a complete explanation of our intention to restore the dams to meet the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission requirements for spillways and for operation.
As far as clean renewable energy goes, there's nothing better than cost-effective hydropower. Unlike wind that produces electricity 25% of the time on average, hydro has the ability to produce electricity 24 hours per day. Affordability is the key to the Boardman River situation. If the dams are gone, all future possibilities associated with them are also gone. I strongly believe that new hydro facilities will not be built, and thus we must maintain those that we have if they can reasonably be kept safe. There's no better form of renewable energy than hydropower. It is a clean and steady source of electricity. Affordability remains the key.
Our firm has evaluated all the costs involved. We believe it is not only feasible but mandatory to restore these dams to hydroelectric power, and we offered in sharing the revenue with the county at no expense to the public. That proposal was turned down, and the decision was made for removal of the dams and for us to remove our equipment.
It's been estimated that removing this dam would require 12 windmills at a cost of over $12 million just for the initial construction to replace the lost energy from this dam. Or another way to look at that in terms of solar energy, we'd have to take up 20 acres of valuable land just to put in the necessary hardware for solar energy to replace this dam. Again, it absolutely seems to not make any sense that we would not only destroy natural resources, but we would go against sound energy policy when we remove this free energy.